Welcome to the Budo Bite mini podcast, your essential guide to the fascinating world of Japanese Budo, culture and philosophy. I'm Alex Bennett, a long-time martial arts practitioner, researcher and writer based in Kyoto, Japan, with decades of experience training, teaching and navigating the rich complexities of Budo. Hello everyone, today I'm going to talk about a concept known as Kyojitsu. So first, the basic definition. Now in Budo, Kyojitsu describes the tactical interplay between falsehood, which is the kyo, and fullness, which is the jitsu. So when your mind is startled or shaken by your opponent's pressure, even if you put on a brave face, this is called kyo, and it means that you are vulnerable. Conversely, a calm and composed mental state, ready to strike, is called jitsu. So, in a Budo engagement, each seeks to avoid their opponent's jitsu and strike at their kyo. Now, the idea is you've got to minimize kyo manifesting within yourself and always strive to attack from a state of jitsu. Now, I sometimes simplify this idea as the interplay between whole and whole. Now, the first whole, the kyo, is H-O-L-E, and jitsu is W-H-O-L-E. It's like the force field you see on Star Trek. Now, when the shields are fully operational, this is jitsu, and nothing can get through. However, under constant bombardment, the shields gradually weaken, eventually flickering or failing momentarily, and this is kyo. And this creates small windows of vulnerability. So recognizing and exploiting these brief lapses, or intentionally creating them so that your opponent fires and leaves themselves temporarily open while they're firing, is key to successful engagement in both space and dojos. In other words, think of it as recognizing and exploiting your opponent's state of mind and physical readiness. That is, identifying when their defenses are vulnerable, when they're in the kyo state, or when they're fully fortified, when they're in the jitsu state. So effective use of this concept involves applying constant pressure to break down your opponent's jitsu, creating exploitable gaps in their defenses. It also requires awareness of your own state, maintaining your jitsu to project strength, or strategically feigning kyo to entice your opponent into committing prematurely. Now, essentially, it's about controlling your opponent's perception and actions, setting the rhythm and conditions of the engagement. But here's the real difficulty. Identifying an opponent's kyo or jitsu during combat is, well, it's far from straightforward. Budo requires split-second reactions triggered by subtle cues perceived through all of your senses, your sight, your hearing, or just your gut feeling. By the time your mind consciously registers, that's kyo, now, well, the opportunity has likely passed. So, how can we effectively grasp our opponent's vulnerabilities? How do we know when it's kyo and when it's jitsu? Well, there's no easy answer to that. It's really just years of experience. But from what I've seen, anyway, strong Budoka exhibit such overwhelming power that they render their opponent's confidence and strength irrelevant. And when I say power, I'm not just talking about physical strength. I'm just talking about that presence, that they're always ready to attack you. One little move that you make, bang, and they're on you. They press relentlessly forward, breaking down any resistance until opponents inevitably flinch or falter. In other words, they don't just exploit existing weaknesses. They actively create them. So effective sparring or shiai competition isn't about waiting passively for your opponent's mistakes. It's about aggressively pressuring their strength, their jitsu, until cracks appear, revealing momentary vulnerabilities, the kyo. Now, this approach involves actively creating openings through, well, relentless, ongoing, overwhelming presence, effectively dictating the rhythm and nature of the engagement. But, and there is always a but, recently, while I was training at my sensei's private dojo in Amino, that's up in the north of Kyoto, not far from the ocean, I was feeling rather pleased with myself. And after practice, Sensei approached me and said, "Alex, you're really strong, mate. Too strong." "Why, thank you, Sensei." "Thank you for the compliment." But as soon as I said that, his expression changed pretty quickly. "You idiot! That's exactly why your kendo sucks," he said. So talk about deflating an ego instantly. But in retrospect, Sensei's critique of my strength made perfect sense. Being too strong is essentially constantly projecting invulnerability. So you might feel, well, I certainly do, satisfaction by making your opponent retreat. And, sometimes this is a good thing, but this actually prevents them from committing and stops you from controlling the flow of combat. So advancement in Budo comes from learning how to subtly show vulnerability, and that way enticing opponents into movements that you have orchestrated. Not merely reacting, but proactively creating opportunities. So by skillfully presenting feigned openings, that's feigned kyo, in your defenses, you invite your opponent in, controlling their actions and ultimately capitalizing on their misjudgment. Of course, consistently showing strength and hitting decisively, well, that's very effective in shiai, and if you land the hit, you win. But at higher levels, particularly for examinations like the Hachidan, the 8th Dan, which I'm trying for, it's less about scoring quickly and more about demonstrating your ability to control the encounter. It's not about striking and then winning. It's about winning first by controlling your opponent and then delivering the strike. So ultimately, the heart of Budo isn't brute strength or sheer speed. It's about timing, it's about perception, precision, and courage. Real growth comes from understanding when and how to display strength, and when and how to show vulnerability, and to have the courage to show vulnerability. And you have to be convincing in how you show it. So it's precisely in these fleeting moments of openness, these intentional pockets of kyo, that deeper insight and genuine improvement occur. And as my sensei told me, you've got to be the puppeteer, not the silly doll on strings. So that really drove the point home for me. So next time you're out on the dojo floor, try letting your guard down just a little and create that, that slight uncertainty, and watch carefully, because the chances are your opponent will jump right into the trap you've quietly laid. But make sure that behind that kyo, jitsu is there, ready to pounce. Thank you for joining me today, everyone. We'll see you next time.